So, after your evening in the saloon bar, you were found fast asleep on a sofa at Northfield Hall. Can you tell us how you got there?
No, I don't remember that part at all.
Well, perhaps you'll tell us the part you can remember.
Let me think. When I woke up, I knew where I was because the moon was shining in through the windows, so that was all right.
All right. Didn't it strike you as odd that you were in someone else's house?
Well, it used to be my house, Superintendent. I just thought, hello, I'm home. And that's when I saw this chap walking along the corridor.
It would help us if you could describe him.
He was wearing a uniform, the way they do at big hotels, like the Royal. Dark blue, with a long jacket and silver buttons. That's all I can tell you.
Not quite. You didn't describe his face.
I can't tell you anything about his face. I can only remember a dark shadow, a sort of black hole where his eyes should have been.
We present To Wake the Dead, a Dr. Fell mystery by John Dickson Carr, dramatised for radio by Peter Ling, with Donald Sinden as Dr. Fell. Part 1, The Riddle of the Stone.
Extracts from notes made by me, Gideon Fell, on Saturday, May the 1st, 1937, on one of the strangest cases ever investigated by my friend, Superintendent Hadley. It involved young Christopher Kent, a wealthy Australian. He was an amateur criminologist. We'd corresponded on several occasions, but I'd never met him until he arrived in my study at Adelphi Terrace.
Good morning, Doctor. I'm Christopher Kent, and I'm in one hell of a mess.
Are you indeed? Then, before you go any further, perhaps I should warn you. This is my colleague, Superintendent Hadley, of the Criminal Investigation Department.
Good morning, Mr. Kent. I think you'd better come and sit down.
Thanks.
Now, what have you got to tell us?
I'm supposed to meet an old friend for dinner tonight, Dan Reaper. He's a businessman from Sydney. A big noise there. He's fixed up a party of his friends and family to come over to London for the Regal Razzle Dazzle.
The Regal Razzle? Do you mean the coronation?
Visitors from overseas are pouring in every day. And, is Mr. Reaper planning to join in the celebration?
Oh, and how? He's a great guy. Salt of the earth, old Dan. And the most stubborn, pig-headed cuss you ever met. And that's why I'm in a jam right now. Well, one day we got into an argument walking along by the harbour on account of me saying I was planning to take up criminology as a career.
A career? You? Get away. You've never had to earn your own living. You couldn't do an honest day's work if you tried.
What are you talking about? Of course I could. Just because my old man's made a bit of money, well, that doesn't mean that...
I'll tell you what it means. It means you don't know how to buckle down to a real job of work.
I could if I tried.
Let's have a bet on it. You'll be in London 2 months from now, right? With the rest of us.
You know I will.
Well, I bet you couldn't start from here without a penny in your pocket. Make your way to London and meet me there. I've got to go down to Sir Giles Gray's place in the country first, but I'll be up in London at the beginning of May. Meet me for dinner at our hotel, 8 p.m, Saturday, May the 1st, without cashing a cheque or using your dad's name to help you on your way, and I'll give you £1,000. How about it?
So I said okay. I was determined to prove him wrong. And I did pretty well, until yesterday.
What happened yesterday?
I arrived on the SS Volspar at Tilbury with a trimmer's pay in my back pocket. And last night I blew the lot on one glorious binge with my messmates. At breakfast time this morning, I was outside the Royal Hotel without a penny to my name, starving hungry with 12 hours to go before my deadline.
Just a minute. Did you say the Royal Hotel?
Yes, near Piccadilly Circus. Dan had booked some rooms there for his party. Why?
It's just a coincidence. No, please, carry on.
And I'll tell you another thing. This may be May Day, but there was a darn cold wind blowing. When I saw a flake of white sailing down through the air, I thought it was starting to snow. But it wasn't. It was a card. This card.
The Royal Hotel, room 707 double, 21 shillings and sixpence. This charge includes room, bath and breakfast.
Breakfast. That did it. It had just gone 7:30. With any luck, the occupants of room 707 wouldn't be up and about yet. Okay, it was fraud, but my stomach was rumbling. I showed the way to the card, and he brought my bacon and eggs without a word. But, just as I was finishing, a gent in pinstripes came over to my table.
I wonder, might I have a word with you, sir?
Yes. What is it?
I'm sorry to trouble you, but you are the gentleman from 707?
That's right.
Of course. The room you're in was occupied until 2 days ago by an American lady who is sailing home to New York this evening. She rang late last night, but we didn't like to disturb you until this morning. She'd just discovered she'd left behind a valuable bracelet. She put it in the back of the bureau drawer and forgot about it. I know it's an imposition, but if we find the bracelet, we could get it to Southampton in time to catch the boat. Would you mind coming upstairs with me to look in the bureau?
Well, the thing is, I've got to go out right away, an appointment. But you have my permission to go up and find the bracelet.
Well, under the circumstances, I hardly
What
like
circumstances?
Your good lady being asleep and having hung a quiet sign on the door. It wouldn't do for us to disturb her. But it won't take more than a few moments, I'm sure. If you wouldn't mind coming up with me, you can go in first and explain to your wife.
I didn't have any choice. With the manager at my elbow, I made my way into one of the lifts, and we ascended slowly to the top floor.
I'm sorry the other lift isn't functioning at present. You probably noticed we have workmen repairing the winding gear at the top of the shaft, but it should be operating again by this afternoon. We've had 2 teams of engineers working all round the clock in order to get the job done as soon as possible. I hope they didn't disturb you last night.
No, not at all. I'm afraid I seem to have left my key in the room.
Don't worry, I have pass keys to every door. Here we are. After you.
The corridor was L-shaped, and room 707 was on the inner corner. Just around that corner was the door to 707, where the manager produced a keyring. As he selected a key, I noticed the quiet label on the doorknob, and saw that someone had scrawled 2 words across it in red ink. Dead woman. Perhaps it was meant as a joke, but somehow it sickened me. I turned it round so the back of the card was showing where the manager unlocked the door.
After you, sir.
If you just wait here a moment.
Of course, sir. As I said, you'll find the bracelet at the back of the bureau drawer.
Thank you. I expected to find an indignant couple sitting up and yelling at me, but the room was silent, and the bed had not been slept in, and nothing stirred, except the hairs at the back of my neck. As I realized that the sign outside the door had not been a joke. In the middle of the room there was a wardrobe trunk.
What?
And the kind that stands up on end and opens out like a book. It was partly open. On the floor lay the body of a woman. A towel draped over her shoulders, and her head in between the halves of the trunk. I went closer and saw that the towel around her neck had been used to strangle her. But that was not the worst. Her face had been heavily battered until it was unrecognizable. And then there was a knock at the door. The manager was getting impatient. I had to do something. I went to the bureau and opened the drawer. I had a vague idea of grabbing the bracelet, opening the door and handing it over just to get rid of him. But I couldn't even do that.
Well, of course, the drawer was empty.
How did you know that? Anyway, now I really was in a panic, until I noticed there was another door in the room, a door in the side wall. We'd passed it on our way from the lift. In a jiffy, I was through that door and running downstairs, and I never stopped running till I got here. You've got to believe me. I swear I didn't kill that woman. Look, I know I was a fool to cut and run like that, but...
It wasn't the best of plans, but I don't suppose there's been any great harm done. provided you can answer one question. Hadley.
Yes. And never mind last night. Where were you a fortnight ago? The night of April the 15th.
Like I told you, on board the SS Volspar.
That should be easy enough to prove. What do you think, Doctor?
I think I do not like this business. It's brutal and unreasonable, but I feel sure that you're telling us the truth.
Thank you. Though I don't quite see why...
I'm afraid we've already heard your story. The report of that woman's death was phoned through to me just a short while before you arrived. And I must tell you some bad news. The woman whose face had been so cruelly battered was Josephine Kent, the wife of your cousin, Rodney Kent, two of the people who travelled from Australia with your friend Dan Reaper.
That woman was Jenny Kent?
Josephine Kent.
She hated that name. We all called her Jenny. I can't believe it. There must be some mistake.
I'm afraid not. Mr. Reaper's party arrived at the Royal Hotel a couple of days ago. He'd taken all the rooms on the top floor.
The whole party? You mean they were all there?
Did you know Mrs. Kent well?
No, she wasn't the sort you get to know well. But she had a special quality, very attractive. Rod simply... Oh, God. Where was he when it happened? The poor devil worshipped her. Oh, this'll just about kill him.
No, he's been spared that at least. Hadley, I think you'd better explain the situation.
Very well. The fact is, we already knew about Mr. Reaper's wager a fortnight ago. He told us himself. We tried to get in touch with you then because... well, I'm sorry to have to break it to you like this. On the night of April the 15th, while Mr. Reaper's party were staying in Sussex as guests of Sir Giles Grey, your cousin Rodney was murdered. In exactly the same way that his wife was murdered last night.
If I'd had any doubts about the young man's innocence, they would have disappeared when I saw the colour drain from his face. The news had come as a terrible shock. Mr. and Mrs. Kent were a popular couple, happily married, and as far as anyone knew, without an enemy in the world. They certainly had none in England, for neither of them had ever been out of Australia before. Yet someone patiently stalked them and killed them. One at a house party in Sussex, the other at the Royal Hotel.
I still can't believe it. It makes no sense at all. Haven't you any idea who's responsible?
Well, there's a fellow we've got in jail, not on a murder charge, though that's part of the reason he's inside. A chap called Bellows, Richie Bellows. A good deal of evidence points to him as the murderer of Rodney Kent, but I can tell you one thing for sure. Whether or not he killed Mr. Kent, he couldn't have killed Mrs. Kent because he's been in jail for the past fortnight.
Yeah, but if I might remind you, in Bellows' statement, he claimed that...
Bellows' statement can't be true. In the first place, his fingerprints were found in the room where Kent was killed. In the second place, any man, drunk or sober, who says he saw a uniformed hotel attendant walking through Giles Grey's house in Sussex at 2 o'clock in the morning...
What?
By the by, have you met Sir Giles Grey?
No, I've heard Dan speak about him. He's something in the government, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he used to be an undersecretary at the Commonwealth Office. But after he retired, he left London and bought a house at Northfields, on the Kent-Sussex border. I gather that he and Mr. Reaper have known each other for years.
That's right. They've got some sort of property deal going. That's why the party went down to spend some time at Northfield Hall. Now, there were 5 of them. Sir Giles, Mr. and Mrs. Reaper and their niece Francine, plus Rodney Kent.
And his wife, Jenny.
No, she wasn't there. She had 2 aunts living in Dorset, whom she'd never met, so she went down to visit them for a while. She only rejoined Mr. Reaper's party a couple of days ago, in London.
Where does this chap Richie Bellows fit in?
I was just coming to that. His father, Richard Bellows Sr., had been a great character in Northfields, an architect and a builder. By the time he died, he'd remade most of the village.
How do you mean?
Well, his speciality was restoring old buildings or creating new ones, replicas of Tudor or Stuart houses, which would deceive the most knowledgeable historian. He really enjoyed that. He had quite a sense of humour. He was forever putting in hidden doors and secret passages.
Oh, Lord, oh, Bucks! You never told me.
Before you start jumping to conclusions, I can say, with my hand on my heart, that there are no secret passages or anything of that kind in Northfield Hall. He built that for his own pleasure. and lived there for 20-odd years until he died when Sir Giles Grey moved in.
You still haven't told me about his son.
Oh, Richie Bellows Jr. Well, he's a problem. He was brought up at Northfield Hall, and he's a brilliant chap in his way, with amazing powers of observation, a photographic memory. If you riffle through a pack of cards, he can name every card he saw in order. Sir Giles asked him round to amuse his guests soon after they arrived.
But you say he's a problem.
Well, so he is. When the old man died, he was left very well off, but he's bone idle. He blames that on the fact that he has a paralyzed left arm, which gives him an excuse to laze around doing nothing. After he started eating the bottle, everything went wrong. The slump nearly bankrupted him, and his wife died of typhoid in some foreign holiday resort. He had to sell the Hall for a song. He's been living in digs since then, and he's become the village drunk. Sir Giles was sorry for him, and invited him to drop in whenever he liked, and he still has his own keys.
Yes, and whenever he gets drunk, he wanders back to the old place automatically.
And he was there the night Rod was killed.
He spent the evening at the pub, as usual, until they turned him out. Then he took a bottle of scotch with him, and was last seen heading for the churchyard.
When Dan Reaper got up to go to the bathroom, he saw Bellows stretched out on a sofa in the corridor, dead drunk. So he knocked on Sir Giles's door, and together they tried to rouse Bellows. He said it was like trying to wake the dead. Then they saw Rodney Kent's door was open.
They found your cousin lying at the foot of the large four-poster bed, strangled, with a hand towel round his neck. His face had been bashed with a dozen blows from a blunt instrument, which so far has not been found.
So you arrested Bellows?
Only on a charge of housebreaking. We had no evidence against him, and as I told you, his left arm is paralyzed.
The doctor said it would be impossible for him to strangle anyone. Moreover, he had no motive for killing Rodney Kent, who was a stranger to him.
We interrogated him next day in his cell at the local police station, but without much success.
So, you were found fast asleep on a sofa at Northfield Hall. Can you tell us how you got there?
No, I can't remember that part at all.
Perhaps you'll tell us the part you can remember.
Let me think. When I woke up, I knew where I was because the moon was shining in through the windows, so that was all right.
All right? Didn't it strike you as odd that you were in someone else's house?
Well, it used to be my house, Superintendent. No, I just thought, hello, I'm home. And that's when I saw this chap walking along the corridor.
It would help us if you could describe him.
He was wearing a uniform, the way they do at big hotels, like the Royal. Dark blue, with a long jacket and silver buttons. That's all I can tell you.
Not quite. You didn't describe his face.
I can't tell you anything about his face. I can only remember a dark shadow, a sort of black hole where his eyes should have been. He just walked on into the darkness, and I couldn't see him anymore. Oh, and he was carrying a little tray, the sort they use for visiting cards. Something about the way he walked put me in mind of a hotel attendant.
Hotel attendant?
Didn't it surprise you to see a hotel attendant walking through a private house in the middle of the night?
I never really thought about it. I just rolled over and went back to sleep.
Nonsensical, isn't it? A silver salver. For what? For carrying a weapon? Mind you, I'm not saying Bellows is imagining things, but if he's telling the truth, where are we?
Don't forget, your village drunk is the man who can describe a shop window full of articles after one glance. If we can persuade him to remember what he really saw, we may get at the truth.
Well, I suppose it's possible that Bellows murdered Mr. Kent that night, and someone else used the same method in the story about a phantom hotel attendant to kill Mrs. Kent a fortnight later.
Do you really believe that?
I don't know what I believe. But the same people were present at the hotel. Mr. and Mrs. Reaper and her niece Francine Forbes, Sir Giles Grey.
Grey came up to London with them. Why?
For the coronation. I understand he's used his influence to book a row of seats on one of the balconies along the Mall.
I see. Talking of Jenny, after Rod was killed, couldn't she tell you anything to throw some light on it?
No. As I say, she was with her aunts in Dorset when it happened. She was half out of her mind when we found her and broke the news. She stayed on in the care of the local GP until she was well enough to rejoin the party in London. And a couple of nights later, last night in fact, she was murdered. Well, Doctor, can you make any sense of it?
Not at present, I'm sorry to say. I can only indicate a few points that seem interesting. I'm interested in towels. I'm interested in buttons. And I'm interested in names.
Names?
Or their permutations. Now, might I suggest that we make a start by visiting the hotel?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Kenneth Hardwick, the duty manager. I'm very pleased to meet you, even under such unhappy circumstances. If you'd care to come into the office, perhaps we can discuss the situation.
Thank you. After you, Mr. Kent.
Dr. Fell, would you like this chair, or...
No, I think the sofa will suit me better.
As you wish. Now then, Superintendent, you were inquiring about Mr. Reaper's party.
Yes. Now, I understand he reserved one entire wing on the top floor.
That is so. I have a ground plan here, which shows the layout of the rooms. Room 707 on the corner is where the body was found, as Mr. Kent already knows.
I'm not likely to forget it.
If you'd explained the situation at the time...
Never mind that. I notice room 707 faces 701 and 2. According to this, they're occupied by Mr. and Mrs. Reaper, and 703 and 4 are Sir Giles Gray's suite.
Yes, and opposite, next to 707, is 706.
Miss Francine Forbes, Mrs. Reaper's niece.
So Fran must have been in her room while Mrs. Kent was attacked next door.
Apparently the young lady is a sound sleeper. And the walls are thick. They have to be to muffle the sounds of traffic in the street.
There seems to be one room you overlooked. Number 705, round the corner, in between the fire escape and the linen cupboard. There's no name against room 705.
That room was provisionally reserved for you, Mr. Kent. Mr. Reaper was hoping you would arrive, but as he hadn't heard from you, it's still vacant.
It's ironic, isn't it? If you'd only known about it this morning, you could have had your own room and your own breakfast.
I gather that until 2 days ago, 707 had been occupied by an American lady who claims she left a bracelet in the bureau.
Mrs. Jopley Darn, yes. Though I don't know why you put it like that. She did leave her bracelet there. I found it myself when I went in and found Mrs. Kent.
But that's impossible.
I beg your pardon?
I'm sorry. I mean, I looked in the bureau this morning, and I'll swear on a stack of Bibles there was no bracelet in that drawer.
I can only say that's where I found it. It's in my desk now. There you are.
May I see that?
It was a curious design. Broad links of white gold with one stone set in the centre. Square, black, with 2 lines of Roman script engraved upon it. In characters only just big enough to be legible.
My Latin's not up to much. Claudite iam rivals, pueri sat prata biberunt. Well, Doctor, what do you make of it?
No wonder she wants it back. The stone itself isn't particularly valuable. Obsidian, perhaps, or black opal. But a good many museums would like to get their hands on it. A rough and ready translation might be, cease your singing, lads. You've had enough recreation. It's one of the most ingenious devices of the ancient world.
Devices? You mean it's got a secret compartment full of poison, like a Borgerie?
Oh, no, nothing like that. No, nothing of the sort. Though it's equally practical. Where is Mrs. Jopley Dunn now?
In Southampton. About to sail for New York. I'm trying to get in touch with her.
You must certainly do so. She'll be delighted to hear that it's safe.
Look, let's get back to business. I'm told you had men working on one of the lifts last night. If an outsider, and not one of Mr. Reaper's party, had gone into 707, would the workmen have seen him?
Oh, yes. An intruder could only have come up by the lift or the staircase, and they'd have been in full view.
Yes, but how about the fire escape round the corner? That's not visible from the lift.
True, but that door can't be opened from the outside, for security reasons. So...
He was interrupted by an indignant middle-aged man, followed by a very attractive young lady.
Look here, Superintendent. How much longer are you going to keep us cooped up in our rooms like... Chris!
Mr. Reaper, I gather you already know Mr. Kent.
Yes, I know him very... Hang on, Chris. Did you tell him who you are? Because if you did...
Oh, forget the damn bet. This is too serious to bother about that. Hello, Fran.
Hello.
So, you've heard the news. Rod and Jenny, both of them.
Yes, I heard. Superintendent Hadley told me all about it.
I just hope you can tell us something. How it happened. Why it happened.
As yet, I'm afraid we know very little ourselves. Mr. Reaper, for a start, can you tell me what you and your party were doing yesterday evening?
We all went to the theatre. Drury Lane. We got back about 11:15, didn't we?
Yeah, about that. We were all tired. We went straight up to our rooms.
And after that? Did either of you leave your rooms for any reason?
No, well, not exactly, though I stuck my head out to look along the hall.
Oh? Why was that?
The watch had stopped. There's a clock at the end of the passage.
And what time would this have been?
About 2 minutes after midnight.
Did you see or hear anyone else in the corridor?
Only one of the hotel staff, outside Jenny's door, carrying a pile of bath towels.
One of the staff? A man in uniform?
Who could that have been? Would you know him if you saw him again?
I didn't see his face because of the heap of towels. I'd say he was average height, in the hotel uniform, navy blue with silver buttons. Oh, you're thinking of the chap Bellows saw at Northfield Hall.
And there was a towel, wasn't there, when Rod was killed? What about Jenny? Was she...
Yes. A towel had been used to strangle her, too.
For Pete's sake.
I'm sorry, Miss Forbes. I know this is very upsetting for you.
No,
but...
I'm all right. I just wish we could stop talking about it and find out who killed them.
A few minutes later, Hadley and I went up to examine room 707, taking Chris Kent with us. The policeman on duty unlocked the door, and as I went in, I noticed something rather odd.
Well, what are you scowling at?
This pair of shoes outside the door.
Well, what about them? They must have been left out last night for polishing.
Yes, I saw them when I came up after breakfast.
Yes, but they weren't polished, for a very good reason. They're made of brown suede. After you.
Yeah. The body's still here. I told them not to touch anything until
She's been moved.
Huh?
Well, her head was inside the wardrobe trunk. I told you. Well, someone's pulled her out onto the carpet.
Now, who the devil could have... Hello? Look at these marks on her neck, Doctor. It strikes me this is a new method of murder.
Thin red wheels on both sides. So she wasn't strangled with the towel.
No. She was knocked unconscious and put between the jaws of the trunk, which were then pushed together. The blows to the face were presumably an afterthought. This is one murderer I'm going to catch if it's the last thing I do. What have we got there?
The dead woman sign. It was still hanging on the door. I wonder where the red ink came from.
Jenny's pen, I'd imagine. She always used red ink. I don't know why. You'll probably find it in her handbag. It's on the bedside table.
Let's have a look. That's odd. No money. But there is a pen with red ink.
Now, I take it you're not suggesting that she scribbled those words on the card herself.
Of course not.
Yeah, which means the murderer must have known where to find that fountain pen. Tell me now, was there a key in her bag?
No, why?
Well, she must have had a key to this room. I mean, it's not in the door. I wonder what happened to it.
I'm more concerned about what happened to the weapon. It's pretty clear that poor creature was attacked with repeated blows from a blunt instrument, face to face with her murderer.
Undoubtedly, exactly like Rodney Kent, beaten unconscious before being asphyxiated.
So if the murderer was carrying a weapon large enough to do that sort of damage, how was it that Mrs. Kent didn't scream, call for help, or put up some sort of struggle?
I wonder. I see there's something else that appears to have been overlooked.
What's that?
I walked across to the bedside table. Someone had placed a stack of bath towels upon it, snow white, fresh from the linen cupboard. Well, there must have been a dozen of them. I picked them up one by one and shook them out. Halfway down the pile, something fell to the carpet.
What the?
An iron poker, nearly 2 feet long. Its head was flecked with lint, sticking to the dried stains of blood.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Not only a good hiding place, but if you had one hand keeping a firm grip on the damn thing, and the towels hiding it from Mrs. Kent, you could whip it out and strike before she realized what was happening. Now what?
Dan Reaper said I'd find you here. I wondered if I could be of any assistance.
And you are?
Giles Gray of Northfield Hall. I expect Dan told you. I've some China tea in my room, if you'd care for some refreshment.
Thank you, Sir Giles. I'm afraid we're rather busy at the moment.
Well, we're very glad to meet you. I've been hoping to have a word with you. As an outsider, an onlooker, so to speak, your views would be most interesting.
I fear I can't tell you much, Doctor. I know no more about this wretched business than I did about the murder in my own house.
But what can you tell us about Mr. Reaper's group? I mean, in general terms.
In general terms, I can only say, in all honesty, up to the moment Rodney Kent was killed, I'd never had so much fun in my entire life.
Fun?
Well, I'd been a minor government official, a city businessman. Pretty straight-laced life all round. When Dan and his friends entered my house, they turned it upside down. They strummed the piano, played childish games. One night, I found myself blindfolded, clumsily pinning a paper donkey's tail to Mrs. Reaper's derriere. And I loved every minute of it.
Until the night of the murder.
Yes. I knew it was too good to last.
Hello, Giles. I thought we were under orders to stay in our rooms till further notice.
Yes, Sir Giles is filling in a few additional details about your guests, Mr. Reaper. Their characters, their personalities.
That's no use. Giles only met them a couple of weeks ago. But I'll tell you who to ask, and that's my wife. Melita's what you might call a student of psychology. Isn't that so, Giles?
Oh, certainly. Mrs. Reaper is a shrewd observer of human nature. She's told me things about the Australians I'd never even dreamed of.
Yeah, well, let's not go into all that now. Besides, Melita's not just an expert on the Aussie character. She knows the mysterious secrets of the British as well, right?
I must admit it was Melita who pointed out that beneath my stiff collar and cuffs there lurks a rather unbuttoned sense of humour. But then one would expect her to understand the English, being English herself.
Oh, you must forgive me. I'd somehow taken it for granted that...
Oh, didn't I tell you? Yeah, Melita's from the old country. Born and bred in a place called Leamington Spa. That's English, isn't it?
Definitely. Though Melita isn't a very common name in this country.
It's short for Carmelita. I believe she was the heroine of a novel by a lady called Ethel M. Dell. Melita's ma was a great one for novels. Anyhow, when her old man inherited one of the biggest sheep stations in Queensland, the family moved out there, lock, stock and barrel.
And that's when you met?
Well, what with her pa being in wool and me being pretty big in underwear...
I beg your pardon.
We met at a trade fair. I always say it was a pair of drawers that brought us together. Oh!
We seem to have strayed from the point somewhat. If we could just get back to...
But that is the point. Like I said, Melita's a student of human nature. British as well as Australian. She'll tell you every little thing you want to know. Take my word for it.
And so, when Hadley had finished his work in room 707, we went over to 702 and introduced ourselves to Mrs. Reaper.
Oh, I know it's all very dreadful, Chris, but I must say it's rather inconsiderate. We were looking forward to a nice holiday, but it seems as if there's always something wherever I go. Did you have a nice trip out, dear?
Listen, Melita, the Superintendent and Dr. Fell have a few questions they want to ask.
There are a couple of things we'd like to know.
Yeah, there are several things I'd like to know myself. I mean, the prices in the shops over here just take my breath away. I saw a hat in Bond Street yesterday. I could get the same thing in Sydney for half the price. Poor Jenny. She always had such pretty hats. Paris models, mostly.
Yes, we wanted to ask you about Jenny. Tell me, how would you describe her?
Oh, I know what you're going to say, but you mustn't believe everything Dan tells you. Men talk such nonsense sometimes, don't they? Women aren't angels, whatever they'd like you to think.
You mean Mrs. Kent was no angel?
I'll tell you what she was. She was dangerous.
Dangerous?
I don't mean wicked, nothing like that, but she was so pretty. Too pretty for her own good. Men buzzed round her like flies round a jam pot, and she loved it. She liked playing them off against each other, and some of them took her seriously. That's the trouble. It's funny how different people can be, isn't it? There's Jenny playing at love as if it were a kind of game. And then there's Fran. She's in love with you, Chris. Did you know that?
What? Did she tell you that?
She didn't have to.
Good Lord, are you sure? Because if she's
Mr.
really...
Kent, I hate to interrupt you, but we are trying to conduct a criminal investigation.
Sorry.
And the doctor has a few more questions to ask.
Yes, so I have, yes. One question about cards. The little cards the hotel gives you, with your room number and the prices and so on. I expect you have one, Mrs. Reaper?
No, I don't think so. Dan does that sort of thing. Oh, wait a minute. I believe they gave him some little cards like that because he's the host, and he was paying for everything. I think he put them on the windowsill. Oh, they're not there now. The room was rather warm. They keep the central heating far too high. I had to open the window to get some fresh air. I expect that's when they all got blown about. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, I think it probably does. Yeah, I also have a question about a key. The key to Mrs. Kent's room. It seems to be missing. I wonder if you knew where she kept it.
Oh, yes. I saw her put it in her bag last night.
Last night?
When we got back after the theatre. We were all going into our own rooms, and when I turned round to say good night to her, she was just opening her door, and then she dropped the key into her bag.
By George! You're sure of that? The key was in her bag?
Oh, yes, I can see her now, unlocking the door. Her coat sleeve fell back, and I saw the bracelet she was wearing. White gold with a square black stone in it. I was quite surprised, because I'd never seen it before, and... What's the matter?
Are you saying Mrs. Kent was wearing Mrs. Jopley Dunn's bracelet?
No, I don't think so, because I never heard of Mrs. Jopley Dunn, and I can't say I care for her name. But I do remember the bracelet, because it was so unusual.
Oh, for goodness sake, come in!
Superintendent, I'm sorry to disturb you, but I thought you should know. I've just spoken to Mrs. Jopley Dunn.
Oh, is she here? Have I met her?
No, madam. She's in Southampton. She described the bracelet she's lost. It's a different one altogether. It's made of silver, set with diamonds, worth £3,000, and she's positive she left it in that bureau. Naturally, she's very distressed, though she thinks her insurance will cover it.
So there were two bracelets in that bureau?
There must have been.
In that case, they were both stolen. Because when Chris searched the bureau, it was empty. But between his leaving room 707 and you entering it, somebody returned Mrs. Kent's bracelet.
Well, all I can say is I never saw it until last night. Ask Fran. She was with us all the evening.
So Hadley and I went in search of Francine. We invited Chris to accompany us, but he seemed strangely diffident about it. After some humming and hawing, he decided he had a letter to write to his parents in Australia, and retired to his own room. We finally ran Miss Forbes to earth in the Palm Court, where she was enjoying a sherry before lunch, and Hadley showed her the bracelet.
You're sure this bracelet belonged to Mrs. Kent?
Ah, yes, I'm quite sure.
And yet Mrs. Reaper says she never saw it before.
Well, she may have bought it in London recently. Perhaps this was the first time she'd worn it.
No, I don't think so. I believe she said she'd had it for years.
But she was definitely wearing it last night at the theatre.
Yes, she was. Perhaps Melita didn't notice it because Jenny kept her coat on all evening.
But you saw it. How was that?
It was before the theatre. I'd gone to her room to ask her what she was going to wear.
What time would that have been?
Oh, about 7 o'clock. Well, she said she didn't feel like going out. She seemed a bit on edge.
Do you mean she was alarmed? Frightened?
No, I wouldn't say that. It would have taken a lot to frighten Jenny. But I asked her what was wrong.
No, can you remember exactly what she said?
I'll try. Let me think. Well, she said she didn't really want to go to the theatre, But
I don't really want to go to the theatre. It doesn't seem right so soon after Rod... Well, you know what I mean. But everyone else is going, and I certainly don't want to stay here on my own all the evening, so... What are you staring at?
your bracelet. It's new, isn't it?
No, terribly old. But I don't often wear it.
Well, I thought I hadn't seen it before. May I?
Of course. Try it on if you want to.
Thank you. Well, how does it fasten? Oh, I see. There's an inscription on the stone. It's Latin, isn't it? I'm afraid I don't understand Latin.
Nor do I. But it has a very special meaning.
A sort of personal meaning.
Only if you're able to read it. That's the whole secret. Do you like it?
It's very unusual, but yes, I do.
Fran, if anything ever happens to me, oh, I don't suppose it will, but if it did, I'd like you to have it.
Was she a close friend of yours?
Not really. I'm not sure whether she even liked me. It was hard to tell with Jenny.
But now the bracelet will have a very special meaning for you.
Only if you're able to read it. That's the whole secret. I wonder what she meant by that.
Do you know of any love affair she might have had? Before her marriage? Or afterwards?
No, Jenny wasn't like that. I mean, she even disapproved of divorce.
You'd be surprised how devilishly respectable some murderers can be.
Surely you're not suggesting she...
I'm just putting forward a hypothesis. Mr. A falls in love with Mrs. B, but Mrs. B is far too respectable for a divorce. So she gets together with Mr. A, and they murder Mr. B.
No, that's ridiculous. If you mean Rod was...
Bear with me for a moment. Now, suppose after the first murder, Mr. A and Mrs. B fell out. If Mr. A turned against Mrs. B, he might have a very strong motive for wanting her out of the way.
Well, I just steady on. Now, 1 minute we're discussing matrimony, and the next you're plotting a double murder with a mythical Mr. A. If there was, or is, another man in the case, we ought to have found some trace of him by now, surely.
Well, perhaps we were looking in the wrong direction. Perhaps Mr. A gave Mrs. B the bracelet. I think if we find Mr. A, we'll be very close to finding the murderer.
Oh, no, you won't.
What? Sir Giles?
Forgive me, I couldn't help overhearing. I've been wondering whether to take the plunge and make a full confession. And now you've helped me make up my mind. All right, Superintendent. I'm the man you're looking for.
Look here. Now, if you're about to make a formal statement, I have to caution you...
Oh, no, I didn't kill her, if that's what you think. I was in love with her. And your reconstruction was at fault on one other point. The bracelet.
You mean you didn't give it to her?
No. She gave it to me.
In Part 1 of To Wake the Dead by John Dickson Carr, Dr. Gideon Fell was played by Donald Sinden and Superintendent Hadley by John Hartley. Sir Giles Grey, Richard Johnson. Chris Kent, David Brooks. Melita Reaper, Wendy Craig. Dan Reaper, John Rowe. Francine Forbes, Tracy Ann Oberman. Richie Bellows, Roger May. Kenneth Hardwick, Hugh Dickson. Jenny Kent, Sarah Rice. To Wake the Dead is dramatised for radio by Peter Ling and directed by Enid Williams.
Well, tomorrow find out more about the inscribed bracelet, but more to the point, who done it? The second half of To Wake the Dead is at the same time.
BBC Radio 4 Extra.
12 midday, Wes Butters with classic comedy for this hour. We say goodbye to single dad Brian and little Albert with the last ever episode of Albert and Me in half an hour. And listen out for Brenda Bless Him, who makes a very early appearance. And coming up later this afternoon, the story of Mary Neal, a suffragette, social reformer and Morris dance revivalist. Her great-great-niece Lucy Neal tells us more in Great Aunt Mary's Tune at 1:30. Now, the Burkiss Way from 1977 on 4 Extra, despite what this guy says.
This is the BBC Home Service.
Comedy, drama and entertainment. BBC Radio 4 Extra.
Now, Donald Sinden plays John Dickson, Carr's detective, Gideon Fell, in the second and concluding episode of To Wake the Dead. It's set in the days before the 1937 coronation of King George VI and was published in 1938.
Extracts from notes made by me, Gideon Fell, on the night of Monday, May the 3rd, 1937. A group of Australians, in England for the coronation, had been guests of Sir Giles Grey at Northfield Hall. Dan and Melita Reaper, their niece Fran, and another couple, Rodney Kent and his wife Josephine, known as Jenny. The hall had been rebuilt and restored, like most of the village, by Mr. Bellows, an eccentric architect with a whimsical sense of humour. After his death, his son Richie squandered his money on drink, and when his wife died, he was forced to sell the house to Sir Giles. He often turned up at the hall, the worse for wear, letting himself in with his own keys. On one such occasion, he was found on a sofa, in a drunken stupor.
When I woke up, the moon was shining, and I saw this chap walking along the corridor.
It would help us if you could describe him.
He was wearing a uniform, the way they do at big hotels, like the Royal. Dark blue, with a long jacket and silver buttons.
When Sir Giles and Dan Reaper discovered Rodney Kent in one of the bedrooms, strangled, Richie would have been the obvious suspect, but his left arm was paralyzed, so he was incapable of strangling anyone. He was held on a housebreaking charge. While he was still in custody, there was a second murder at the Royal Hotel near Piccadilly Circus. The victim was Rodney's wife, Jenny. Her body was discovered by his cousin, Christopher, choked to death between the two sides of an upright wardrobe trunk, which had been closed on her neck. Earlier that evening, she had shown Fran a bracelet containing a black stone with an inscription in Latin.
I'm afraid I don't understand Latin.
Nor do I, but it has a very special meaning.
A sort of personal meaning.
Only if you're able to read it. That's the whole secret.
We present To Wake the Dead, a Dr. Fell mystery by John Dickson Carr, dramatised for radio by Peter Ling, with Donald Sinden as Dr. Fell. Part 2, The Secret in the Stone.
Try as we might, we could make no sense of Mrs. Kent's death, until Hadley hit upon a possible explanation.
I'm just putting forward a hypothesis. Mr. A falls in love with Mrs. B, but Mrs. B is far too respectable for a divorce, so she gets together with Mr. A and they murder Mr. B.
That's ridiculous. If you mean Rod was Mr. B...
Bear with me for a moment. If Mr. A and Mrs. B fell out after the first murder, he'd have a strong motive for wanting her out of the way.
Oh, no, steady on. I mean, if there was another man in the case, we'd have found some trace of him, surely.
Perhaps Mr. A gave Mrs. B the bracelet. I think if we find Mr. A, we'll find our murderer.
Oh, no, you won't.
What's it? Sir Giles?
Forgive me, I couldn't help overhearing. I've been wondering whether to take the plunge and make a full confession. Now you've helped me to make up my mind. All right, Superintendent. I'm the man you're looking for.
Look here. Now, if you're about to make a formal statement...
I didn't kill her, if that's what you mean. I was in love with her. And I didn't give her the bracelet. She gave it to me.
Since the Palm Court was rather a public place for such confidences, we accompanied Sir Giles to his suite, where he continued.
I know the penalty for suppressing evidence, but here you are. The missing key to room 707.
Are you telling us that you and Mrs. Kent were... that you had...
I'll tell you what we had. 6 kisses. I counted them. And she said the last one was for luck.
You didn't say anything about this at Northfield when her husband was murdered.
No, of course not. She was in Dorset, staying with relatives. I hadn't even met her until she came up to London a few days ago.
So you met in this hotel, when her husband had been dead only a couple of weeks?
It's hard to explain. I can only say nothing like it ever happened to me before. There was something about Jenny. She was very attractive, but I wasn't attracted immediately. Somehow she let me know that she found me attractive. I was so flattered. I wondered if I might actually fall for her. And before I knew it, I had.
Oh, what did the rest of your party think about it?
Oh, good heavens, they never knew. We met late at night when the others had gone to bed. I must impress on you, nothing actually happened.
Another murder happened? That must have been a terrible shock for you.
Yes, of course. Although, to be perfectly frank, by that time I was coming to my senses. I realized I'd been infatuated, hypnotized almost. And then I woke up.
Did you go to Mrs. Kent's room last night?
I did.
What time was that?
12:45, and I left about midnight.
And that was the last time you saw her?
No, I went to her room again at 7 a.m., and once more about 8.
And you still maintain you didn't kill her?
Of course I didn't. We'd had a pleasant evening at the theatre, though Jenny arranged matters so that we sat at opposite ends of the row.
Go on.
Well, the first time I had a chance to be with her was, as I say, getting on towards midnight. When the coast was clear, I went over and knocked at her door. And I can tell you this. She was frightened about something.
Who is it?
Me, of course. Giles.
You better come in, quickly.
It's all right. Nobody saw me. Who did you think it was?
I don't know. I just wanted to make sure.
You're looking tired. You've been thinking about your husband, haven't you? Poor...
No, I haven't. I don't want to talk about him. Just tell me honestly. Do you love me?
You know I do. There's never been anyone
That's all I wanted to know.
What are you doing?
Taking off my bracelet. I want you to keep it for me. Here. Take care of it. Always. Then nobody will ever try to wake the dead.
Don't understand.
It doesn't matter. Just keep it somewhere safe. And now, I think you'd better go. You're right. I am rather tired. I must try to get some sleep.
Look, if I put in an early call, we can have breakfast together before the others get up. Then we could go for a walk.
Yes, all right. But kiss me goodnight first. Dear Giles. And one more for luck. Damn.
Who the dickens?
How do I know? You'd better slip out through the side door. Go on, quickly. All right, I won't be a moment.
So I ducked out and nipped back here. Then I rang down to the desk and asked to be called at 7:15.
You didn't see who was knocking at the door?
No. You don't mean that was it? Oh, my God, I never thought.
Well, tell us what happened in the morning.
When I got my early call, I washed and dressed quickly. I wanted to keep my appointment with Jenny, though by then I was having second thoughts about the whole thing.
Why was that?
When she kissed me for the last time, I could see she wasn't thinking about me at all, but something much more important. Earlier in the day, I'd been telling her how lovely Northfield was, and she suddenly said we'd have to move somewhere else. She said she couldn't live in the house where her husband had been killed. And somehow, I knew she was lying. It was as if I'd switched a light on, and for the first time, I saw her, she really was.
But you still meant to have breakfast with her?
Yes. I went to her room. I was about to knock, but her key was in the door, so I just walked in.
Remember that, Hadley. The key was in the door.
The curtains were closed, and there wasn't much light, but I could see her lying on the floor with her head inside the wardrobe trunk. When I touched her, she was as cold as ice. I didn't know what to do, so... This is hard to explain. I just walked out again with the key in my hand. I wanted to call for help or wake Dan up, but I didn't want to get involved. So I went back to my own room.
But you went back to 707 once more?
Yes. It was nearly 8 before I remembered I still had Jenny's bracelet. When I opened my door, I saw 2 men outside her room, Chris Kent and the manager. What's his name? Hartley. He waited while Chris went in, and after a few minutes I saw Chris slip out by the side door and head for the stairs, and the manager was still waiting. So I took my chance, nipped over to the side door, let myself in. The bureau drawer was open, so I dropped the bracelet in, then opened the curtains to get a better look at Jenny. I pulled her out of the trunk so I could see her face. I took one look and bolted. I thought I was going to be sick. Back in my room, I realized I still had the damn key in my hand. I suppose it's too early to ask whether you believe me.
Well, it was certainly wise of you to come clean, Sir Giles. And your story fits all the known facts. As long as the night staff confirm your early call, I don't think you've much to worry about.
Thank you. In that case, I feel it would be better, whilst this wretched business is still hanging over us, if I took my party down to Northfield Hall. That is, if you have no objection, Superintendent.
None whatever. We shall see you down there. I still have a few questions which need to be answered.
So had I. That evening I invited Fran and Chris to supper in the restaurant. They arrived early, and I was a little late.
Well?
Well, what?
What do you mean, well, what?
I don't mean anything. Nothing at all.
Well, why say things that don't mean anything?
Oh, you can be so infuriating sometimes. You just sail through life without ever noticing what other people have... Well, people like Jenny, for instance.
Well, what about Jenny?
I suppose you're going to tell me you never even noticed she was making a play for you.
Jenny? Oh, what absolute rubbish.
It's not rubbish. She jolly well was.
Hello. Sorry I'm late. Much as I hate to interrupt this conversation, I think the waiter would like to take our orders.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
During the evening, we talked of other things, but when the meal was over and we were sitting over our coffee, we returned to the same inevitable topic.
Was anything else missing from Jenny's room?
No. Everything seemed to be in its proper place. She had some very good pieces of jewellery, a whole lot of traveller's checks, but no money in her bag. No small change. Tell me, Francine, what are your thoughts about this whole mysterious business?
I don't like it. I don't like the thought that someone very close must be responsible. One of us. But I'm not afraid. Well, not much. I believe it's all over.
What makes you say that?
Because this time the poker was left behind. It wouldn't have been left with the pile of towels if someone had any further use for it.
What do you think? Now Rodney Kent and his wife are both dead, that will be the end of it.
Well, of course, I can't be sure. Jenny was always a bit of a mystery. I sometimes wondered what Rod saw in her. All right, Chris. I know he was supposed to be devoted to her, but some people said he only married her for her money.
Her money? But Jenny had money of her own.
From her parents, I believe. And she certainly had a very expensive taste in clothes.
Great heavens, what a duffer I've been. What a thundering idiot. Why did nobody tell me?
What difference would it have made? It's only gossip after all.
It could also have been a motive for murder.
Doctor, if you know anything or guess anything, you must tell us. Please.
No, I mustn't. I can't. I think perhaps I understand half this affair. With luck, I may hit upon the other half. But I don't want to raise your hopes or put you off guard, just in case.
You think there's still danger?
No, there's no danger. If you keep your door locked at night. But you can tell me what you know or surmise about the case. If you were asked to pick the most likely murderer, who would you choose? Oh, Chris?
Oh, my trouble is I've studied too much criminology. By all the laws of logic and deduction, I can see only one possible murderer, and yet...
No, I'm going to write a name on the back of this receipt. Now... Now I'll fold it over and pass it to you. Now take my pencil and write your chosen name.
Very well. There you are.
Now, Francine, you must unfold it and read out both names.
Well, you've both written the same name. But who is Kenneth Hardwick?
The duty manager of this hotel.
That nice, quiet man?
Crippen was a nice, quiet man, and Hardwick told us he had pass keys to every room. He would have access to the bath towels in the linen cupboard. He would know where to get hold of a spare hotel uniform and return it afterwards. He would never be found among all the rest.
Exactly. And yet, where's the motive? Unless he's somebody out of Jenny's past.
But why was the same uniform worn on the night of Rod's murder at Northfield? No, wait, I think I've got it. I suppose Hardwick would have known the names of the guests in advance when Dan booked our rooms here, huh?
Oh yes, that was all booked long ago, before we left Australia.
Right. Then the murderer was seen at Northfield in his uniform because he wanted to be seen. I mean, he was preparing everyone's minds for his second appearance when he turned up here and killed Jenny, preparing us all to see... Oh, no. I thought I'd got it, but I haven't. Well, after all, what's so special about a navy blue jacket and a pair of trousers? Sorry, I've run out of ideas.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Now, by thunder, I shouldn't be surprised if that remark comes closer to the truth than anything we've heard so far.
How do you mean?
Hadley and I are going down to Northfield tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you both there. I'm particularly looking forward to meeting Mr. Richard Bellows again, because if our murderer wanted to be seen, why did he deliberately pick Bellows as his witness?
Anyway, how could he have known the village drunk would conveniently wander in that night?
He couldn't, unless he invited him there. Now, tell me, did any of your party meet Bellows before he was found at Northfield Hall that night?
Well, we didn't exactly meet him. Sir Giles brought him in one evening to show us his amazing memory tricks. We riffled through a pack of cards, then he told us the cards he'd seen, in the right order, that sort of thing. Afterwards, Sir Giles filled him up with scotch and sent him home. I thought it was a bit embarrassing, because Northfield Hall had belonged to him once.
Yes, that's significant. On the night of the murder, he was clutching a bottle of whiskey. As a rule, he sticks to beer. Had somebody lured him there using a bottle of scotch as the bait? I believe he was brought to the scene of the crime as a witness because of his memory skills. But that night, he was too far gone to remember what he was supposed to see. That's why I want to dig into his subconscious and see what I can dredge up. So I'm now going home to get a good night's sleep. No, don't get up. Enjoy your coffee. Good night.
Good night. And thanks again. What an amazing chap.
Amazing? Well, of course, you know who he really suspects, don't you?
Melita? Are you out of your mind?
No, I mean it. When I was getting tied up in knots just now, mumbling, what's so special about a navy blue jacket and a pair of trousers, I saw the look in his eye, and I knew what he was thinking. Why did the murderer go to so much trouble to print the image of a man in our minds, and in such a mannish uniform? It's because the murderer is a woman.
But that's unbelievable. Melita, of all people. Why on earth would she...
I told you what sort of person Jenny was. We know she'd been involved with Sir Giles. Well, suppose she was involved with Dan as well. After all, he's a wealthy man. Perhaps that's how she came into so much money.
When Hadley and I left London next morning, we did not go straight to Northfield Hall. First, we visited the police house. It looked very like all the other cottages, except for one room which had been converted into a small cell, where we found Richie Bellows.
Hello again. This is an unexpected pleasure.
We're here because we're not satisfied that you've told us everything you know about the night of Rodney Kent's murder.
I've told you 100 times. All I did...
Yes, we know what you did, but not why. Did someone persuade you to go to the hall that night?
No.
You're quite sure of that?
Yes. Why should anybody want me there? Come to that, why should anyone want me anywhere?
You did have a bottle of whiskey with you. Had someone given it to you, perhaps?
Why would anyone do a thing like that? No, I bought it when I left the pub.
I thought you were perpetually hard up. You must have been in funds that night.
You may have heard. I'd given my little magic show for Sir Giles the day before. When I left, he shoved an envelope into my pocket. You know all that tosh about people being too proud to accept charity? Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I'm not one of them.
When you entertained them at Northfield Hall, I presume you met all the guests.
I was introduced. I wouldn't say I got to know them. Though that chap, Reaper, talked to me for a while. He asked if I'd like to make a new start in Australia. And I think he meant it.
Did you meet Rodney Kent?
It's funny you should say that. I know he must have been there, but I can't really remember him, which is unusual for me.
To get back to the night of the murder, when you left the pub with your bottle of scotch, you made your way to the churchyard. Why was that?
I live in Diggs, and my landlady starts preaching at me if I've had a skinful. I wanted to make sure she'd gone to bed before I went home.
I see. And when you reached the churchyard, you sat down on an iron bench and opened the bottle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you've already made a statement, but I'd like you to tell us anything else that comes back to you about that night.
Well, it's hard to remember exactly. Things started to run together and get a bit hazy after that. I've got an idea that there was somebody talking to me at some point. Huh? But that might have been me talking to myself, reciting poetry or something. You know how it is.
Yeah, quite, yes. Can you put a time to any of this?
No. After closing time, that's all I can say for certain. The next thing I knew, I was lying down. But not on the iron bench. That was when I woke up and found myself upstairs at Northfield Hall, on the sofa.
Yeah, and that was when you saw someone who seemed to be a hotel attendant, walking along the corridor.
That's right. He had a dark blue uniform with silver buttons. At least, I think it was dark blue. I couldn't be too sure about the colour in the moonlight. And he was carrying a silver tray.
Ah, yes. Now, tell me about that tray. What was on it? You must remember. I mean, this is your special talent, isn't it? You're shown a number of small objects and you remember them all. What was on that tray?
No, it's no good. I can't see anything. I'm sorry.
When we left the police house, we went on to Northfield Hall, where Sir Giles was waiting for us.
I'm very glad you're here. We've only been back about an hour, but there's already been a rather unpleasant discovery.
What do you mean?
I'd been up to the bathroom to wash, and when I went to dry my hands, this photograph fell out from among the towels. It's one of several Dan Reaper sent me months ago to introduce his friends before they arrived. This one shows the whole group at some sort of fun fair.
The photograph had been taken at the top of one of those chutes where you sit on a mat and slide down into the darkness. Most of the party were laughing. Rodney Kent, Dan and Chris, though Melita was trying to be dignified, and Fran looked annoyed. As we studied the picture, Sir Giles broke in.
Turn it over. Look at the other side.
Mm-hmm. Red ink. There is one more to go. And it had been hidden in a pile of towels.
When did you find this?
Not 10 minutes ago.
But you'd seen the picture before. When was that?
I put all Dan's photographs in my desk drawer in the study. Let me show you.
The study was at the back of the house, looking out onto the garden. There was an old-fashioned roll-top desk and an inner staircase leading to the upper floor.
Can you guess where this staircase leads? Mm-hmm. The upper corridor, opposite the bathroom. Anyone could have walked in here, scribbled that message on the photo, and taken it upstairs.
And where do you keep the other photographs?
In this drawer, if you want to see them. Oh, good God!
He withdrew his hand quickly. What oozed out between his fingers looked like blood. Inside the drawer, the photographs had been torn to shreds, and a small bottle of red ink emptied over them.
I hope I can be called a good host. I like my guests. I enjoy their company, but this is going too far. I can understand murder up to a point, but I cannot understand this.
What have you got there? Is it a purse?
I keep some small change in here in case a parcel has to be paid for or errand boy expects a tip. Luckily, it's escaped the worst of the red ink, but it's empty.
I'm going to settle this. Let's find out what your guests have been doing during the past hour.
Melita and Fran were sitting in the sunshine on a garden bench. Dan and Chris were in deck chairs. Briefly, Hadley explained what had happened.
I never heard such tomfoolery. Are you telling me someone wrote on that photo, tore up the others and doused them in red ink, and then stole a handful of small change?
Dan's right. The rest could be some sort of crazy joke, but stealing the money doesn't fit.
There wasn't any money in Jenny's purse either.
At the hotel, that's right.
I thought it was strange at the time. When I'm travelling, I always carry some change. You never know when you're going to need it, or where. I'm sure Jenny did the same. Someone had taken it.
Well, let's leave that for the moment, shall we? How long have you all been out here?
Well, half an hour at least. Isn't that right, Chris?
I should think so. I wasn't watching the time.
I can vouch for that. I saw you both from the drawing room window.
Were you in the drawing room too, Mrs. Reaper?
Oh, no. I was having a bath. I suppose it was silly of me to come outside so soon afterwards, but it's such a nice day. Dan, can I have your jacket to put round my shoulder?
When you say so soon, how soon exactly? How long ago did you have your bath?
Let me see. I went up about 11:30, and I added some more hot water twice. So I must have been in the tub half an hour, at least. Yes, when I got out, I heard the church clock striking 12.
Joseph! And did you use the towels?
Well, of course I did. How do you suppose I... Oh, I see. But the photograph wasn't there. I'd have noticed.
12 o'clock, Hadley. That's when Sir Giles met us at the front door. With the photograph.
And he said he found it 10 minutes earlier. I think I'll have another word with Sir Giles.
I think I'll come with you.
You couldn't possibly have found the photograph among the towels, as you claimed. And when you opened the desk drawer, you jabbed your hand in without looking, then reacted in great surprise.
Are you accusing me of faking the whole thing? I tore up the photos and poured ink over them. I wrote the message on the other photo and pretended to find it in the bathroom.
No, you didn't write that message. The words on the back were not only dry, the ink had begun to fade. It had been written at least a week ago, if not longer.
So you're accusing me of insanity, is that it? You was to charge me with stealing 12 shillings and sixpence of my own money.
No, I'm quite sure you did not. You really were surprised when you found the money had gone. That was genuine enough.
I see. My crimes are telling lies about where I found the photograph and spilling some ink.
I think I can accuse you of something a little less trivial than that. You told us you'd never met Mrs. Josephine Kent until she arrived at the Royal Hotel a few days ago. But I have evidence to prove that you were acquainted with the lady, who was then Miss Josephine Parks, when she first visited England 4 years ago.
A fascinating theory. But what makes you think she'd been to England? Her friends will tell you she'd never left Australia till now.
So they believe. Yesterday, I saw her wardrobe trunk. It's old and battered and has travelled a long way. When she turned up in Sydney 3 years ago, she said she'd come from Adelaide, and so she had. But not recently.
Well, this is all very interesting,
Yes, I was interested. That's why I checked her passport, a joint passport in the names of Rodney and Josephine Kent. But in order to get it, she had to surrender her previous passport in the name of Parks. So I investigated a little further. She landed at Southampton in September 1932 and was domiciled in England until December 33 when she returned to Australia.
If these are the facts, I won't bother to deny them. But what have they got to do with me?
In order to take up some kind of employment over here, she needed a permit. And she came to your office for an interview. I have your signature on the form approving her application.
I interviewed thousands of people. You can't expect me to remember everyone I met briefly in all that time. Her surname had changed.
But she hadn't changed much in 5 years. And Dan Reaper had sent you the photographs. No doubt you recognized her. That's why they had to be torn up and obliterated with red ink.
Very ingenious, very impressive, and completely wrong. At one moment you say I destroyed the photographs, next minute you say I deliberately drew your attention to them. You can't have it both ways. If you seriously think I recognized her after all that time...
I don't think you remembered her at all, but she remembered you. That's why she wrote to you.
What?
According to her English relatives, while she was in Dorset, she wrote 2 letters to Northfield. I imagine one was to her husband, but the other was to you. I think she was begging you, when you met in London, not to tell anyone that she'd been in England 5 years before. Being so beautiful and so self-confident, it never crossed her mind that you wouldn't remember her. And being a gentleman, you agreed to what seemed a harmless deception. It amused you, it intrigued you, and that was the first step toward your infatuation.
Oh, well done, Doctor. But I didn't kill her.
No, I don't think you did.
I admit I pretended I'd found that photograph among the towels, and I did spill the red ink over the other pictures. But that's all I did.
But you didn't tear them up?
No. That's how I found them in my desk this morning, and the other one undamaged with the message, "One more to go."
Ah, yes.
I thought it was an attempt to frame me for the murders.
When did you last look in that drawer?
Probably 3 weeks ago. You say the message was written soon afterwards. I thought someone had done it this morning. That was my mistake.
It was also the murderer's mistake. The threat was intended for Mrs. Kent on the night of her husband's murder. One more to go. But it wasn't discovered until after her death. While Hadley was taking a statement from Sir Giles, I explained the situation to the rest of the party.
So he did know her, but he'd forgotten her. And he might have murdered her, but he didn't. That's men for you, isn't it? So unpredictable.
I thought he might be guilty. I suppose I wanted him to be, because it would have cleared the rest of us. But if so, why would he have scribbled a thread on that picture a fortnight ago and then produced it today?
Why, indeed. I'm only sorry that when Hadley asked so many pertinent questions, he neglected to ask the one question that really matters.
What question?
The question of who was holding the camera. Do any of you remember?
Yeah, I remember. It was Jenny. She didn't want to go down that slide. Afraid of showing her knickers, I reckon.
Dad, really?
But that means...
She was the only one of you not in the picture. The others were torn up because she was in them.
I knew there was something about that picture, but I couldn't think what. It seemed to me I've seen it somewhere quite recently.
Yes, so have I. Well, didn't we see it when we... Oh, no. No, it's no use. It's gone.
Yes, well, now, has no one any more ideas about the identity of the murderer? No new theories?
Well, there's only...
Well, go on. Yes, don't keep us in suspense. Only what?
Well, I was only going to say, it did cross my mind that he might have been, she might have been, a woman.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
Well, I just thought I'd mention it in case no one else had thought of it.
As a matter of fact, it was one of the first ideas I had, until I remembered the suede shoes. Our murderer left the shoes outside room 707 to make it seem that Mrs. Kent had retired for the night as usual. But suede shoes don't need polishing. No woman would have made that mistake.
Of course. I knew it was an absurd idea.
Never mind. You can't expect to be brilliant all the time, can you?
Hadley and I had taken rooms at the pub. And that evening, we invited Chris and Sir Giles to join us in the snug. After a while, Sir Giles became rather pensive.
There's something that only just struck me. Why did people call her Jenny? Josephine usually gets shortened to Jo. But she preferred being called Jenny, and I believe some man gave her that name. God knows who. And now he's probably wondering why he killed her, and what life will be like. Now he hasn't got anyone to hate.
Come on, old man. Don't let it get you down.
Oh, I don't, but a few lines of verse keep running through my head.
Mm-hmm.
Say I'm weary, say I'm sad, say that health and wealth have missed me.
See, I'm growing old, but Ad.
Jenny kissed me. I've been asked a lot of questions today, Superintendent. May I ask one in return?
You can always ask.
Why have you got a police officer watching Francine?
What?
Where did you get that idea?
When she and Chris returned from their walk this afternoon, I noticed a man following them, at a discreet distance. And I suspect that the reason you invited me here tonight was in order to post someone inside my house. I think I have a right to know what's going on.
Is that true? You're having a watch?
Just to see she doesn't get into any trouble. In fact, with any luck, we hope to get our man tonight.
I see. When? And how?
After closing time, when everything is quiet. When you get home, if you happen to see a police officer in the house, do nothing and say nothing. By tomorrow, I trust this case will be closed once and for all.
If Fran's in any danger...
No, she'll be safe. Set your mind easy about that.
Oh, is there anything that I can do to help?
Well, we have several men posted at strategic points, and I was hoping you might care to join us.
I'd better get back to the hall to be near to...
Well, we're all going back to the hall by different routes. I'll go with Sir Giles. Our local man, Inspector Tanner, will go with you, taking the shortcut through the churchyard. And it'll be dark. Don't trip over the tombstones.
When the pub closed, the lights were turned out one by one, and Hadley opened the side door.
Tanner?
Sir?
Your men in position?
Yes, sir.
Right, let's get started. Chris, you'd better take this. It's only a poker from the hearth. I don't suppose the landlord will object, but you can't be too careful.
Which way now? Through the lich gate. I can't see where I'll go first. You can follow me.
Chris was aware of the inspector somewhere ahead of him. It was very cold, and the iron poker in his hands was like ice. A gravestone loomed up. He put the poker down for a moment to blow on his hands, but when he went to pick it up again, he couldn't find it.
Where the devil? Don't worry. It's here.
He saw the navy blue uniform, the silver buttons, the poker raised to strike. Chris went for him, landing a rabbit punch on the back of his neck. As the poker fell into the ground, 3 men raced towards them, and 2 of them carried flashlights.
He stole the march on us. I didn't think he'd be here already. All right, let's have some light on him. Roll him over. Looks like he's out for the count.
Is that...
Yes, that's our murderer. Richie Bellows. Final notes made on May the 12th, 1937. Coronation Day. Hadley and I had been invited by Sir Giles to rejoin his party on one of the balconies overlooking the Mall. As we waited for the royal cavalcade to pass, they all fired questions at us.
Yes, Bellows was wearing the inspector's spare uniform, which I'm sorry to say he'd got from the police station. Navy blue with silver buttons.
Just like the attendants at the Royal.
Just so. You put me onto it when you said, what's so special about a navy blue jacket and a pair of trousers? That's why we never found the missing uniform at the hotel. Bellows was already wearing it when he left Northfield.
But how the deuce did he get out of the cell?
Well, have you forgotten his father, who rebuilt half the village? It was his little joke, which he shared with his son. When he converted the police house, he put a trick door into the cell. All Richie had to do was borrow the uniform and a raincoat and catch the train to London.
But he didn't use the lift or the stairs at the hotel, so how did he get up to the top floor?
By the outside fire escape.
I thought that door only opened from the inside.
It was right next to room 705, which was empty at that time. The window was no more than 2 feet from the fire escape, next to the linen cupboard where he found the pile of towels.
To strangle Jenny. No, hang on. He couldn't strangle her with his paralyzed arm.
No. He braced himself against one side of the trunk, then pulled the other side hard with his good arm, closing it on her neck.
As for Rodney, when he'd knocked him unconscious, he looped a towel round his throat and one of the 4-poster uprights and garroted him.
Yes, but I still don't understand why he stole that money from Jenny's purse.
And from my desk.
Well, he had no money in jail, and he needed it for the train fare. When he'd killed Rodney Kent, he planned the whole scheme aimed at Jenny.
But why?
Why did she refuse to visit Northfield? Why did she lie about her last visit to England? She had to conceal the fact that she was Richie Bellows' lawfully wedded wife.
He'd never. Wife? Did he give her the bracelet?
Oh, yes, as a wedding present, with two sets of initials, R.B. to J.P., engraved inside. After a year of married bliss, she couldn't stand his drinking any longer, so instead of taking a seaside holiday, she took £8,000 from their joint account and returned to Australia.
But how did he find out she was back in England as Rod's wife?
As one of his tricks at the magic show, he was given some photographs and asked to describe what he'd seen. And he'd seen Josephine, who'd become Jenny. Later, he destroyed the pictures in case anyone at Northfield recognized her, except the one she wasn't in, which he needed as a threat, after he'd killed Rodney. He believed they were living on his money, and he had to take his revenge on both of them.
But that night, when Rodney was dead, why didn't he just slip away?
He kept taking swigs from his bottle of scotch to keep his courage up, but by the time he'd finished, he was very drunk. When they found him on the sofa, he'd already planned the second murder. He knew Jenny would be at the Royal Hotel, so he used the tale of the phantom hotel attendant to mislead us. I admit I was taken in myself. The story was too absurd not to be true. A liar might have invented an imaginary burglar, but never a hotel attendant.
Where does Jenny's bracelet fit into all this?
Well, remember, Jenny sent 2 letters from Dorset, one to Sir Giles, the other not to Rodney, but to Richie. She was afraid he might find out who she was, so she wrote to warn him. If anything happened to her, he would be incriminated.
Because of the bracelet.
In fact, she'd had the initials removed years ago, but he wasn't to know that.
But when I asked if there was a secret in the stone, she said only if you're able to read it.
She was right. It's called a sober stone.
What?
Yes, a sober stone. Well-bred Romans wore them at banquets. The inscription was in such small letters, you had to be sober to read it.
Wonderful idea.
When you couldn't decipher it any longer, it was time to stop. Richie gave it to her as a pledge that he would become a reformed, sober character. But in the end, he became a murderer.
Well, I'm damned. And here we were going round in circles suspecting one another.
Who did you suspect, dear?
Oh, to tell the truth, I'd pinned it on our house.
Thank you very much. Who did you pick, Melita?
Oh, I thought Dan had something to do with it. Well, you're always getting up to some mischief.
Oh, thanks. I suppose you were above suspicion.
Not always. Fran thought Melita might have done it.
Oh, did she now?
Chris, you didn't really believe that, did you? I only said it because I thought it was you. I was afraid you've been carrying on with Jenny, and I thought if I accused Melita, you might own up.
Things have come to a pretty pass, and you don't know what people are really thinking, even when they tell you. So, what do you call it?
I call it a detective story.
Oh, here they come!
The procession at last. Rule Britannia! God save the King!
In Part 2 of To Wake the Dead by John Dickson Carr, Dr. Gideon Fell was played by Donald Sinden and Superintendent Hadley by John Hartley. Sir Giles Grey, Richard Johnson. Chris Kent, David Brooks. Melita Reaper, Wendy Craig. Dan Reaper, John Rowe. Francine Forbes, Tracy Ann Oberman. Richie Bellows, Roger May. Jenny Kent, Sarah Rice. Inspector Tanner, Ewan Thomas. To Wake the Dead was dramatised for radio by Peter Ling and directed by Enid Williams.